Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am Jessie, and I have the sweet Gwendoline French Gin team here. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So, Kevin, you want to start? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Philadelphia, and I am the director of marketing for Sweet Gwendoline French Gin.
Nice. Okay. And Sarah, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm calling in from London. And I don't really have a rigid title anymore. We all kind of do a little bit of everything, but I'm kind of mostly responsible for kind of looking the feel of the brand.
And I guess, hi.
And Larry?
I live in Brooklyn, but right now I am in New Jersey.
All right. We were talking earlier before we started. Sarah says London is very cold, and I just came from cold country, and Kevin and Larry live in cold country. So, and a big storm is coming across the country, so we're all bracing in, I guess, for the storm. I'm in now Orlando, so I'm, rain is fine, snow is not. I like the snow only when it's the pretty part, not the wind and the blowing, and that's just miserable.
Yeah, and the day after when it's dirty.
New York.
Yes.
Nice snow, and then it's mud.
It's mud, and yeah. My favorite snow days in the Northeast is in New York City. The city would shut down except for the subways, and everybody go to the park and be these big mounds of snow. That was kind of fun. All right, well, let's get right into the brand here. Where would you like to start? I guess with the Blindfold, maybe? You want to start the tasting, or you want to kind of talk about the brand?
Let's start with the Blindfold.
Let's start with the Blindfold. Let's do it. Okay. And I'm tasting just the plain, right? Blindfolded?
That's right. And just to provide a bit of context as to why the Blindfold, it's because Sweet Gwendoline French Gin is based on the fetish artistry of John Willie, hence the Blindfold. He was an expert in sensory experiences, particularly sensory deprivation, and when one sense is deprived, the other's becoming more heightened. Hence, Blindfold while we talk you through the gin. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I just have to find everything. Okay. Yes, I am ready.
Are you sitting comfortably?
Yes, I am.
So before we begin, when we do this in real life, we always ask people if they consent to the things that are about to happen to them, because consent is the most important thing to us. It's the most important thing in most people's life, feeling that they have consent to what happens. So do you consent to this tasting?
Yes, I consent.
Good. We shall begin. So, welcome to the Sweet Gwendoline French Gin tasting experience. Our aromatic gin's first aroma is citrus, followed by warm spices and green apples. So if you would like to lift the glass to your nose and deeply inhale. Our French gin is infused with the most erotic fruit, fig de Salers, and its aroma is finished with a playful hint of fresh fig. So lift your glass to your lips and take a sip. Our organic certified gin is a New World gin distilled in the south of France. The botanicals in our gin are, and if you'd like to take another sip, I'll run you through them.
Okay.
Angelica seed, cardamom, coriander, lemon, lime, juniper, and sweet orange. Now, take another sip. It has a light entry that develops with juniper, citrus pear, and green apple notes. Our gin's finish is bright and fresh with black pepper and white wine notes. Now, to finish our experience and our time together, which unfortunately has been short on this occasion. We usually make it a lot longer, and we have little intervals where we hand figs and we have chicklers. Would you like to finish the experience by taking a sip of your cocktail, which in this case is our signature martini, the provocateur?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I did it all on my own. I found it.
Hand it to you. So for those, this is audio, so I'm going to fill in the gaps because I know dead air is bad air. Jessie is currently taking the martini glass. Have you found it?
Found it.
Yes. And is raising the glass to her lips in her beautiful black sash, blindfolded head, and is taking a sip.
Wow,
and has a
yummy.
huge smile on her face of satisfaction.
Yeah, it's great.
And that is the end of our time together. Our time together, Jessie, is done. You may now remove your blindfold.
Okay.
And hopefully that was quite a profound experience and you were able to taste more acutely our French gin.
Yeah, I think so. And as you took me through each sip with different parts and elements of the profile, you could really taste them. There's a lot going on, and it's really smooth. And I'm a gin lover, so this is a sweet spot for me. So this is really good. And I mean, obviously, tasting it straight in a cocktail can be different, but it just mellowed it out. And just made it so smooth and easy to drink. This is certainly a very good gin and an awesome martini. So, yeah, that was really fun. Thank you, Sarah, for taking me through that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kev.
I was gonna mention that what we've done is a lot of time the way that we use this tasting experience has been with trade, to introduce trade to it. And what's been really nice is people love it, and people are really, we've done it a lot at like Tales of the Cocktail, staff trainings, that kind of thing. And people take very well to it, and they like it, and it's easy for them to follow, especially with the sensory deprivation bit of it. And then also, because you're not looking at the ingredients, you're not looking at what's happening. And then also it just fits with the brand. So it's been a really great tool for us.
Yeah, I can totally see that. That sets you apart and is very unique because you're doing that whole sensory, kind of journey with them. And it certainly is unique and fun. I can see why you do it.
It's important to the
really
brand
cool
for us to make sure that we live this brand as well. It's not just, flashy, cool-looking bottle. It represents stuff, as you heard from Sarah before, about consent. And we also want to make sure that people are intrigued and try new things. We'll never do anything the same as everybody else out there, hopefully. It's
right.
And
yeah.
also we sort of elevated, to Kevin's point, we had one that's sort of like 6 minutes. You went through the 1 minute one. And then at Tales, we also brought all the characters to life. So we had, Sweet Gwendoline come to life. We had the different characters of John Willie. But I think Sarah will take you through some of the brand stuff so you understand what I'm even talking about.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, John Willie, for the context, he was a mid-century fetish illustrator, and he had a publishing project which was called Bizarre Magazine, which ran just after the Second World War up until the early 60s, when he sold it to an anonymous publisher in LA. And it ran at sporadic intervals. And as far as John Willie was concerned, it was a fashion magazine. So that directs us a lot in everything that we do. We've placed Sweet Gwendoline French Gin in the intersection within fashion and fetish. So it has a fashion appeal too. So it never is strictly a niche brand. It has that kind of fashion appeal as well. He was very glamorous, and we focus on his specific fetishes, which were fashion fetishes. So very high heels, long opera gloves, sashes, corsets, very beautiful clothes. And those characters that we brought to life and we bring to life on a regular basis, his aesthetic influences all our brand design. And that's the brand, and that's John Willie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll just give you a little bit of background on it. I've been obsessed with Bazaar and John Willie since probably 20. I've been collecting his magazines. They're very hard to get because he only did a certain amount of printing. They were paperback. They were small. Trying to find them was really, really difficult. And I think we saw a gap in the market for a brand that was not like everyone else. Yes, it's a gin, but as you even tasted the gin, we wanted our gin to have certain aspects within it that also related back to it. You'll taste a little black pepper of a bite on the back. There's a sweet entry when you go into it. The bottle itself, when you take a look at a bottle, if you want to grab it, it sort of has corsetry, boning ideal in it. There's a peephole in the back to go and look for different art. The top is a latex top, and you'll see the choker, which is kind of like a representation to the fetish community. But to Sarah's point, it's really about that cross section between fashion and fetish. And we wanted to make sure that we sort of, really wanted to make sure that we represented John Willie in the right way, not appropriated, but actually embrace it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that story. I think you're right. There's not a lot of brands out there that really embrace that part of our our world or our market or our fashion, if you will. And I think that really is something that's unique. And in a competitive marketplace, you have to do something that makes you stand out. And that certainly you've done that with passion, right? Not just for marketing purposes. You've done it with a purpose and a passion. And I think that's really unique.
French gin, like, why are we doing a French gin? People ask, and a lot of that goes back to John Willie's sort of, obsession with the Paris sort of burlesque scene, and also, we believe that sort of French have a different aesthetic and a different sort of. There's a romance behind it, but there's also this attention to detail around culinary. Our stills are steam heated. Our infusions come from all of the south of France, from where it is. So we wanted to make sure we embraced, like, devil's in the details, man. Like, we can have a beautiful bottle and a great brand and sexy, marketing stuff, but if the product doesn't sort of represent it correctly, you just have something that's beautiful, not something with substance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well said. Very well said. So where are you distributed, and are you selling in France, or are you selling just in the US?
Well, I'll let Kevin start that one. Yeah. We're not in Europe yet.
So at the moment, we're only available in the United States.
Okay.
We're available online for online purchase in 32 states through our website, and then we are on off-premise locations in about 19 states. Some of the top places for us are, of course, New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. And then we're building in other cities too. We're starting to, now that we have a foothold in those three markets, we're starting to build in, Austin, New Orleans, Miami, Atlanta has been really good to us, and others. So much more to come this year. And then so that's basically it. We're intending to launch we're in the UK this year as well. So stand by.
Yeah.
But no, we're sold in France.
That's exciting.
Add that Las Vegas has become a big market for us as well. One of our partners is Dita Von Teese. We don't really talk a lot about it because she's really, truly a partner. And she has a show now at the Horseshoe. So and she's sort of taking back Vegas, like the old school about what Vegas.
Old school Vegas, I love it.
We've been doing really well there with that, and excited about what we're going to keep doing, and really excited for Europe coming up. Sarah's banging away. We've got a lot of people asking for it in the UK, France, and in Germany. It's just, you want to make sure that your expansion is done correctly and smart. And
Yeah.
you know, we don't want to blow up and then not have sort of resiliency, you know?
Yeah. Well, you don't want to go work hard to build it up in certain markets and then not have enough product if you're growing too fast. But that's a really good problem to have, you know? I mean, you're a wanted product, and I think that's you've done your your work, your job. Like, that's really impressive. That's really awesome. And that's exciting because it gives you so much to look forward to, you know, and you can go through your own process and figure out, you know, your plan and how that looks and how you can, you know, best do it that works for you guys.
Backgrounds, well, you know, I'll let everybody talk about their backgrounds and stuff, but I think I'll just speak for myself. You know, my background has been in the advertising side of it. You know, I worked with Proximo and Casa Lumbre and Campari, William Grant and Sons, and helping with their brands, you know, as part of the creative team that created Sailor Jerry Rum. And working on the advertising side, very different than on the manufacturing side. But you learn a lot. You learn a lot about where brands need to be placed, consumer understanding of brands, all of that kind of stuff. And I think I had a bunch of mentors along the way. I don't call them mentors. I think people are like-minded or can see something bigger. You know, there's people like Mark Teasdale and Elwood Gladstone, and Jerry Ruvo, who was the ex-CEO of Campari, all the guys at FPS Spirits, you know, Moy and Danny and Ivan and Enrique, that have really sort of been there, seen a vision together, and have trust in each other. I think that's the key thing. It's like that trust that we're going to do something interesting together. We're going to try new things. We want to break boundaries, but also understanding, like, you can't be so hip it hurts. You know what I mean? You can't be so out there that people can't grasp what you're trying to do.
No, that's really true. And even with Sailor Jerry, if you want to kind of talk a little bit about that, I think that's it's not similar, but it's not dissimilar in the way that you found this unique way to kind of reach different audiences through. I mean, with Sailor Jerry's rum, but then you have a gin, which is, you know, I think it's really interesting how how that's kind of how that came about and how that was the creative process on that.
And I'll let these guys, because we all worked on it in different aspects, and I have all Sailor Jerry tattoos on my body by Ed Hardy.
That's awesome.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. It's like, what are your passions? What are you really into? And if you can manifest that in something that you believe in as a product or something, it's totally different than if you're like, oh, let's make a gin. And you're like, there's nothing behind why you're doing it. I think you can see, like, shit falls flat. I'm sorry, probably shouldn't curse. I tend to. Okay.
No, you can curse. It's fine. I swear. Yes, this is not made for children.
Can see that. I think people can see, like, oh, they're just putting something out. They don't have, you know, they don't have a passion for it. They don't believe in it. They're not looking at it differently. They're not trying to make statements about something that's beautiful and cool that you might not have seen before, you know? So I think that was with Sailor Jerry, that for me, that was sort of the idea of, like, traditional tattoo for me is like, you know, it's artwork. With Sweet Gwendoline, his artwork, he's, you know, the godfather of the fetish scene, and his artwork is beautiful and erotic and fashionable, and he was playing on a bunch of different tropes that we all work out in our own self. So how can we make that into something that everybody can sort of experience?
All right, Sarah, you want to talk a little bit more about your experience with the brand and how you got involved?
Yeah, I'm not from a spirits background at all, although I've worked in it now. I think it's about 12 years. I'm originally from fashion backgrounds. Did my fashion at my fashion MA at Central St. Martin's. Alexander McQueen was in the year of Barbara and Stella McCartney in the year of Blue Live. So that was the road that I was on. And then Kevin rang me up one day, this Kevin right here, and he said that Sir Jerry were launching Greece, but they didn't know anything about Greece. Could I go and help identify some kind of touch points for them, or do a bit of a kind of cultural blueprint so they had something to kind of seed the brand with? And 7 years later, I'd been to 35 countries and done that job, and I've still never been to Greece. So I don't know what happened there, but Greece was visited. So it's really thanks to Kevin that I got involved in one of the spirits brands. I worked at Sailor Joe for 7 years, and then I left because I went to work with Vice Media, and I helped them launch their beer, which was an experience. And then got with the brands, and it went full circle. Kevin rang me up and said, we're working on this sweet Gwendoline French gin. We're hoping to get it launched. This happened during lockdown. We had a beautiful year and a half where we could thoroughly indulge ourselves in lots of noodling and lots of talking. And we probably had the opportunity to have a much deeper dive into what the brand was and was going to be than most people have the luxury of, because we literally had nothing else that we could do for a year and a half. And I think that was, in hindsight, it was probably a good break for us when we came out the traps. Larry had been working on it for nearly 10 years anyway. Kevin was on board a couple of years before I was. So when it came out the traps, it really was kind of ready to go and sort of fully formed. And it's not really changed that much since. It's evolved in its own way. But we have such a kind of, when you talk about mentor, we have such a mentor for this brand, which is John Willie. And everything comes from John Willie. You know, the way we talk. He made Fetishes a hoot. He was hilarious. He would have readers' letters, which were a hoot. And he would often use humor to camouflage the explicit nature of what he was doing. So we carry that through to the brand. So when it comes to mentors for the brand, John Willie is the one. And we always think, what would John Willie do? What would John Willie say? And every time we're trying to think, how are we trying to convey this message? We're like, hang on, John Willie said this. We have all his quotes, and his quotes always stand up today as much as they did 60 years ago. So that's the biggest mentor that we have for this brand right now.
That is awesome. I've never heard of a story like that before. We're all sitting around, you're talking about the brand, and you're thinking about the person that you built this brand kind of around and what they would say and how they would say it. That is really kind of cool. And very directional, right? I mean, you have a brand and you have your parameters and you know exactly what those are just because of this person and the fact you have all these different quotes and you know, the focus behind it is phenomenal. It's really cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy to us. And his wife at the time was Pollyanna Barrett, and she was capitalist for him as well. Unfortunately, they're both now deceased. God rest ourselves. So a lot of work, we have to fill in the gaps. Like, what if he were here today? What would he do, and what would he say? And it's pretty much everything carries through. It's all as relevant now as it was then, more so in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say that the thing with John Willie that's so great is that he was so ahead of his time, and he'd be perfect. Like, he's like a great blueprint for today. Like, in terms of, like, you know, he was very open and accepting to all types, you know, every type of person. And like, he wasn't, you know, there was nothing to be ashamed of in like what John Willie did or said back in the day. You know, he wasn't racist. He wasn't like, you know, he wasn't like people with disabilities. He wasn't like anti-gay or trans or any of that. He was very pro all of that. So it was kind of like, you know, when we started really diving into it, and I give Sarah a lot of credit for really diving into like a lot of the details of it, is that that we're like, oh wow, he was like the guy for today, which is kind of amazing. But it was so long ago. You know, he's been gone since I think 1962 or 3. Hit me for not knowing the exact year, but he's, you know, but he was an interesting guy in that he was very much ahead of his time.
I think one of his greatest quotes that we use most of the time is everything he did in his whole world was the pleasant optimist who frown on convention. And whenever anybody says, oh, who's your target audience? We're like, that's it. John said it. It's the pleasant optimists who frown on convention. You know, he has the answer for everything in this brand. He's always there on our shoulder. And funnily enough, he was always there when Dita was working as well. He was the inspiration for most of her look and everything that she does. So, and we are not alone on that. We can't own John Willie in any way, shape, or form. He's been an inspiration for most people within the creative industry for many, many decades. We're just one of them. He inspires and influences many
I just wanted
people.
to build on what Sarah said, because Sarah's really been the gatekeeper. And while I don't know that it was a fully formed idea. I think it was an idea that I had a pretty, blocked viewpoint of it. And these guys helped me open it up, quite frankly, and I think it's,
Nice. Teamwork. Trust.
This is a team. I mean, you're looking at the team, right? We keep it small. We keep it nimble. We want to be able to be reactive to what's going on. And I think that's another thing is like, yes, we're based in something from the past, but those values live on. And we try to represent those values as we're moving forward. I've known Dita. So this was, when I first was thinking about this, I've known Dita for about 25 years. I used to be in the clothing industry long time ago. She used to buy samples. And when I started thinking about this, I knew her background and our shared passion for John Willie. And she sort of represents that out front on stage in many different ways. So we wanted to make sure that this sort of, to Kevin's point, encompassed a lot of different people, right? We're not just about one thing. We're around these ideas like that Sarah had talked about consent and freedom and those ideals behind it. But, something, I also think there's like this sinfully good kind of idea. Like, hey, listen, might not be for everybody, but there is this idea of, what's behind the closed door, what's through the keyhole. That's why we use that keyhole. What's the peep into that? And I think that's universal.
Is there any other anything else or any other stories or anything else we need to know about the brand before we kind of delve into each one of your journeys? How about a shelf price?
$39.99.
Okay.
So we're in a premium subset, but when we looked at sort of what was happening within gins, there's this kind of weird, anything above that, it's kind of this weird no man's land. We wanted to be a parody for some of our, other sort of well-known brands. We wanted to make sure that we could make a sort of a statement around them on shelf. But yeah, we definitely feel ourselves as a premium brand.
Yeah, and that's the segment, as far as I know, is what's kind of growing also and kind of taking off. So that's, a good segment to be in. Yeah. No, that's a good price. I just usually start with, where you're born, where you're from, and how you made your way into the wine and spirits industry.
Thank God. Through the back door completely. I'm from a little town outside.
Those are the best kind.
I'm from a little town outside of Philadelphia called Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And I was kind of the weirdo punk rocker kid from that town. I moved to Philly to go to art school when I was 17. Went to art school, but also bartended and sort of made my life in Philadelphia. I owned a bar called Silk City there, and I had a clothing line called Retroactive, which was kind of a rockabilly clothing line. So you can sort of see my taste of things that I value and I love. And I was brought in to sort of do a clothing line with Gyro at the time that did Sailor Jerry, and that was Sailor Jerry. And that's how I got in advertising. Totally. I went to school for glassblowing. I mean, who would have known? Yeah.
No way. How long does that take?
It takes a long time and you don't eat well. So I, made the decision to I had a t-shirt printing business. I made the decision to go into clothing because I wanted to eat and I wanted to travel a little bit.
Okay, I can get that. Okay.
Yeah, so I got in advertising through the back door, and we had a client, William Grant and Sons at the time, and I think I told you about Mark Teasdale, worked with them. I left Gyro. I worked on a bunch of brands with Gyro there. I left Gyro and came up to New York. I live in Brooklyn now, and started working with Proximo and helping them with a bunch of their different brands. And then the big thing sort of started. I was like working through agencies. I was working with a big agency. I hated it. Started my own small agency, got sort of appropriated by another agency and brought in Campari at the time. And I think that was sort of the bigger shift for me, was bringing in Espolón tequila. So I relaunched Espolón tequila for Campari, and it was fun. It happened to be successful, and got to work on a bunch of the different brands within the Campari portfolio. Again, I've worked with Kevin for like 27 years. Is it 27, Kevin? It feels like a long fucking time. 24? Okay, good.
I'd say 24, actually.
Makes by 3 years. And, we worked, it was awesome. I mean, we worked with Casalumbre and helping them with some of their brands. So we've always been in brand development, I let them talk about brand development, creating new brands, or helping brands sort of find their way, and I started working for another agency, but part of that was the Mighty Shed, and part of that was to work on my own brand while I did that, because, with Sweet Gwendoline, it's been in my head for years. At one point, Campari even bought it from me. I bought it back from them because I wasn't really happy with sort of what the direction was going to be with that. And it was during a time I could, and I'm grateful for that, and grateful for how they helped me as well with this and the learnings. And I said, I got to do this. I got to do it. I got to take a chance because it's something I have passion for. And I left the agency world about a year ago, maybe less, to just do this full time. I was doing that, I was working like 80 hours a week. It was nuts. And, the success of the brand right now, it's doing extremely well. I'm really happy for that, but it wasn't on my shoulders. It's on the people here and everybody that's helped us along that way to make this a reality. That's my journey.
Yeah, I love it. So, how exciting that it's been, such a journey of, over the years, and how interesting it is to sell it to a big company like Campari and buy it back and be able to do that is really, really unique and really cool. And, continue to have those great relationships, and to see you be able to quit your job a year ago to just be with this brand is incredible. Because this is no easy thing. This is very difficult, and you have the one SKU, it's a very focused brand, very focused market that you're going after. And obviously you have a lot of interest in the brand and demand for the brand. So, it must be so exciting and rewarding to see you put in so much time over the years, and then have this amazing team that you trust and have helped it kind of expand the brand a little bit more beyond your box, and let it fly, let it go. It's so exciting. What a
Lots
great
of smiles
background.
and cries.
How fun.
Lots of smiles and cries.
That's just being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and I learned it the hard way, which I kind of feel like is the best way, because it's stamped. It's stamped. Kevin and Sarah will attest to this. We've been through super highs and some lows, and being resilient is the key. Being resilient is the key.
I'll go, I guess. So sure. So I grew up outside of Philadelphia. near Valley Forge, which everybody knows where or what that is. And I studied marketing in college. I didn't really use it for a while, though. I left college, after I graduated. I was actually like a long-term substitute teacher at high school for a while, which, if you ever want to have an awkward job, is to be really young and just be like 4 years older than your students are. And I was teaching in Germany, which meant that I was teaching at an American high school in Germany for a couple of years. And so like all your students can go to the bar too. So, you teach all day and you go to the bar at night and you see the people you're teaching there. It's a little awkward. But so I did that for a while. and then I got into just like kind of general marketing and ended up in digital. And then for a number of years, and then I got laid off in 2000 because there was the big, I worked for this digital agency, which is amazing. And, I was like employee number 14, and 6 months later, there were 120 people there. And then, they laid up, 60% of the people off a few months later. So I was looking for a job, and I went and I interviewed at Gyro, which is where I met Larry. And I had this really funny interview with the guy who owned it and still owns it today, where he kind of like said that I was too old. It was 2000. I was 33 years old in 2000. And I went there, and he basically said to me, like, "You're too old to work here. I work with a lot of younger people." And I said, "Well, it shows." And he kind of yelled at me, and then he hired me. So
That's funny.
And Gyro handled a bunch of accounts. So Larry was the creative director there. And they handled everything from fashion brands like Puma, which is where I met Sarah, because I worked on the Puma brand. We did their global campaign, and Sarah was working in the UK on the brand side, and also spirits. So they were just launching Sailor Jerry and Hendrix at the time. I think Hendrix had just been out a bit, and Sailor Jerry was just out as well. So I worked on those brands and really got heavily involved in this on the spirits side. After I was there for about 5 or 6 years, I was at Gyro until the beginning of 2011. So I was there for a long spell. So I worked on both those brands, including the global expansion of both Sailor Jerry and Hendrix. And that's where, Sarah mentioned earlier that she and I actually met up. I mean, the good part of that story too is we met up in Barcelona for a drink, because I happened to be in Barcelona for something, and Sarah was there, and that's where we talked about her working on Sailor Jerry. So, but worked on the global expansion of both of those brands, and there were a ton of issues too, because like Sailor Jerry had a different flavor it was only out in the US and the UK at the time when it was going global. And first of all, like the UK had a much sweeter flavor profile, much different demographic than the US did, and also it was 92 proof in the US, it was 80 proof in the UK. So there was a whole thing that happened where like the flavor changed, and the flavor changed in the UK, and then also it had to be 80 proof in the rest of the world, except for I believe it was Canada and South Africa. You can make it 92 proof. And so there was a lot of learning there, because we got beaten up for that. So you really take a beating for changing the liquid in a country that has been used to it for 7 or 8 years. So that was fun. Yeah, that was a great time. But it teaches you a lot. And then basically what happened is that I was at Gyro for until like for almost just about 10 years. And I thought I wanted to consult on my own. And and some of my clients who were at William Grant and Sons at the time were saying, "Oh, just you can consult. So I did. So I left. I took a little trip for several months, like call it my sophomore year abroad. And then I came back and I started consulting. There was a woman who, she was the main she was the head of the US for Sailor Jerry and for Milagro Tequila at William Grant. And she had left and gone to Remy Cointreau. And so she hired me to work with her at Remy Cointreau as an outside consultant, sort of as an agency, but a little bit more internal too. And it really kicked my butt. And I learned a lot, working there in this kind of like hybrid agency / internal role. So I was there for a couple of years, working at Remy Cointreau, specifically on Cointreau and Mount Gay and Ouzo and Metaxa, which is a Greek liqueur. But Cointreau obviously was the big fish. And working with the Cointreau family, et cetera, which was exciting. Again, going back to this idea of working with brands that have stories, like Sailor Jerry, Cointreau goes back to 1849. It's been the same family ever since then. This is like the 10th generation, Alfred, who is still the head of it. He's only probably like 35 years old at this point, but, very much carrying on this family tradition. So there's a lot to work with. And then from there, I just started, I was doing other consulting work. Larry and I got back together. Larry was heading up this agency in New York and was working on Espolòn. And actually at the time I was working on Smirnoff as well. And we got back together and started working on Espolòn and Sky. And then Larry was developing Sweet Gwendoline with Campari. And simultaneously, I was a partner in a brandy, in a brandy brand that is deceased now. It's gone. It did not work. And one of the things I learned on that journey, whilst doing all these other things, while trying to make money by consulting, etc., is that if you're not one of the big guys, to educate people on what a brandy is and why it's just as good as, our idea was it's a brandy, it's just as good as whiskey, it's better than whiskey, you can do more with it, et cetera, et cetera. It's really tough to do that if you don't have $15 million, basically. So it was a really interesting experience to do that, because, Larry, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but at the time, Sweet Gwendoline the concept was an eau de vie, and that was part of, Larry and I were having this discussion. I'm like, my brand is kind of, going south, because it's really tough to educate people on it. Nobody wants to know. And then, and that's where it was. And then Larry changed it to a gin after a while. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got to Sweet Gwendoline. And then, Larry and I have been consulting on other brands, for the Casalumbre group with Abasolo and Nixta, some brand development stuff too, for products that their white label division, which is called FPS, creates. So we created a brand for Total Wine, which is called Kikisi, which came out right around the beginning of the pandemic. It's basically a competitor to Kahlua. And now I see it everywhere, which is great because it's a beautiful label. And and then Sweet Gwendoline, we came back to it, and, Larry had reconcepted it as a gin. And we all got back together around 2020 on Sweet Gwendoline, and voila.
Oh, that's awesome. A lot of really good experiences. We'll have to talk offline.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I worked at Remy, so I'm sure we may know some of the same people.
You had mentioned that, yeah. I'm sure
but it's been, long time ago that I've been there, and people change and move, and around the industry. So, it's very cool.
Definitely. I mean, I think one of the interesting things too is as much as I hate to have failed on a couple things, failed on the brandy thing, it's good to fail because
you learn more, right? You always learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's timing. It's not always, what the product is, or, whatever else may have gone wrong, but it's also timing too. You just never know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Sarah, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your journey?
Yeah, I think I touched on some of it before, but I'll pick up where I left. Actually, I ran screaming from the MA at St. Martin's. I must be honest. I did it. I didn't finish it because I left a month before the end because I just couldn't afford to put the catwalk show on, which they had to do. I was living in a squat in Deptford in London back in the days when you could squat. Lucky me. I kind of ran screaming from it. I the whole time I was doing the MA, I had to work in a pub because I didn't have any money. And I loved working in the pub more than I worked at the MA. And the St. Martins were horrified. They were like, how can you prefer working in a pub than being on this like esteemed Central St. Martins, this most revered thing? But honestly, I liked working in the pub better. I was having much more fun. Anyway, I left and then I went to work for an independent record label. I was pressing vinyl back in the days when vinyl is getting a renaissance now. But, back in the days it was terrible. We had this like shitty little office in Camden and we had to flick the mouse droppings up our desk. I was there for 4 years. We only had one hit, but it was a big hit. It was, the Candy Staten mashup, You Got the Love. You got the love I need to see me through. Sometimes I feel like throwing my hands up in the air.
Awesome.
We did that. It was a bootleg originally. And then, of course, Florence and the Machine did it. And, everybody's done it now. But it was originally a bootleg and we did it. It was the only hit that we ever had. It got into the charts and stuff. But I'd done that for 4 years. I was like, what have I done with my life? I crushed it. I was on the MA at St. Martin's, so I'm flicking mouse droppings off my desk every day. But I had a boyfriend who worked at Puma. And Puma were getting pressure from Puma International, Puma UK, getting pressure from Puma International to hire somebody to give trainers to people in bands and artists and designers and people on the telly. And Puma UK were up in arms going, what? But we're a sports brand. Give trainers to bands? This is dreadful. We're not doing it. And they got pressure and pressure and pressure. And in the end, Puma UK, right, we have to get somebody. We'll just get anybody. Just shut them up. We'll get somebody. My boyfriend said, find Sarah, because she works for a record company and she's got a fashion background. They're like, perfect. And they took me in, no interview, nothing. Sort of skipped along for about 6 months. They were very skeptical, doing a few things. They didn't see the value in it. And then this is back in sort of 2000. I got a Puma sweatshirt onto, it would have been the equivalent of Harry Styles back then. And it was Robbie Williams.
Oh, yeah.
You'll remember Robbie Williams.
Love Robbie Williams.
Okay. I gave Robbie Williams a Puma sweatshirt. And the next day he split up with, it was one of the All Saints. Was it Nicola Appleton? They split up and he was on the front cover of every single tabloid paper in the UK with a pint of milk and a newspaper under his arm, looking sullen. Headline, Robbie splits with girlfriends. And he was wearing the Puma sweatshirt I gave him. And on the Monday morning, the UK phones were off the hook with all the shops in the UK saying, we need to look at the Puma collection again. And suddenly we're like, oh, this works. And that break, when you have to like pinpoint at some point in your career, what was the lucky break? That was my lucky break. Suddenly Puma International were like, okay, you work for us now. They were like, get yourself an office. I've got an office around the back of Carnegie Street in Soho, huge office. We just used to have parties in it all the time. I was backwards and forwards to Boston. And that was my lucky break, really. I think I was only about 25 at that point. Maybe 25, so quite young to be doing that. Anyway, I had the pleasure of meeting Kevin, and Kevin stalked me throughout my career ever since. We've never been able to part from each other. It's Kevin that gave me probably the second biggest break, because it took me from working, I worked at Ben Sherman in the interim period, but it took me from not just working in fashion, but working in the spirits industry as well. And then the most interesting thing is wherever I've gone, it's been the same approach to product for everything. To have discipline, to have worked in the music industry and in fashion and then in spirits, it's really interesting to kind of shift those sorts of skills and the way that you promote things and apply them to a completely different sector. So when I was at Puma, I treated trainers like they were records, because that's all I knew. That's the only thing I knew how to do. And with records, you would send out a test pressing to certain DJs and they would make it big. And then you would send another test pressing out to the press and they would get press on it. And, you would distribute it in that way. And that's what I did with trainers. I would send out the trainers to like these key influencers, like the samples, to like the biggest people. So it's really interesting when you get these opportunities to work in a completely different sector or discipline than the one that you have applied the same thinking to it. So when I came in the spirits brand, it sort of revitalized the way it's like, oh, well, you could treat spirits in the same way. And that's what we did. We worked pretty much at a grassroots level, and we worked with influencers. The campaign was totally generated from Caleb and Beyer and the team. It was a gyro initiative. But I implemented it throughout the world. And that was probably like my second break. Yeah. I had to leave though. I'd been doing it for 7 years and things had started to change at Sailor Jerry and everybody kind of left at the same time. And then, as Kevin said, I had one of the biggest disasters in my life. Everything I'd worked on, people were snatching out my hand. It was always so popular. Everybody wanted it. I'd only ever worked on things that people really, really wanted. They really wanted those trainers. They really wanted the records, the test pressings. They really wanted Sailor Jerry. And then suddenly I worked on a project for a year. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it. Everybody hated it. And I was like, I don't know how to process this. I've never experienced this before. And it was a great learning. One, yes, to work on something that fails and fails spectacularly and to learn from it. And two, that experience of working on something that wasn't popular. Thank God I've never had to revisit that because Sweet Gwendoline is very popular. Everybody wants that too.
Yes.
So I've never had to go back.
Yeah, well, you learn enough from one.
Do it again. It's fine. And I'll never do it again either. I think the biggest mistake they made is that it went out the door with things wrong, fundamentally wrong with it. And the attitude was, just launch it and we'll fix it afterwards. It'll be fine. And there is no fixing it afterwards. There's no fixing it. Once it comes out, that's it. And the liquid was wrong, the price was wrong, the packaging was wrong. I'm not going to go into who it was because we don't need to, but those are the principles that were wrong with it. And they said, just launch it, get it out the door, we'll fix it. And it's like, you can't fix it. There is no fixing it. There's no going back. You do it. It's got to be right. And it's got to go out right. Things can evolve, but you can't change them. And that's that. So that was
that's a lot of things to go to know ahead of time and to still go through with it. I mean, you you see that in other industries too, like Toyota and the car industry where they have recalls and all that. It's just I don't understand the mentality behind that because if you don't do it,
it's to customers as well. And that was the thing that I most disliked about that thinking. It was discourteous to customers. And to bartenders and to the industry, you introduce something to them and you'll think, oh, it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what they say. We'll fix it later. It's just discourteous. And it was the wrong attitude. So, it never fixed afterwards. It just failed.
So, Larry, I know you've mentioned a few mentors already, but is there anybody else that you'd like to talk about in your journey?
It's funny. There's one person that I haven't talked about, I don't think, in any of my interviews. It's this guy, Jeremy Courtney, who we call Mackie. And Mackie works, I hope I don't get him in trouble. Mackie works for William Grant & Sons, and he was part of the initial journey with me in the very beginning. Irish guy, sales guy, and has always been that person, sort of my Mr. White, he's whenever I have a problem or something like that, I can call him and he sort of can point me in the right direction. I mean, he introduced me to Danny and Moy. He was part of Sailor Jerry in the very beginning with me. He's a close friend of mine, and he's just somebody that can, you need somebody that's going to tell you the truth.
Yep.
And because a lot of people will tell you, yeah, of course. There's not a lot of people that'll tell you the exact truth. And he's one of those people that I rely on quite a bit. There's a couple of people in my life that are those kind of people that know me very well, know all my, and that's what I tell everybody. And I don't know, I always listen to myself, but knowing what you're good at's great. Knowing what you're not good at is even smarter, right? So, Kevin has to remind me of that, and so does Sarah every once in a while. I rely on them to sort of keep me straight. I have a vision, and I chase it, and I chase it hard. And sometimes you have to make sure that that vision's aligned or that it's attainable in the right way. So I think having a vision is great. Having the steps to get to the vision is what you need to put people around you that you trust, that got your back, that are going to give you really good information along the way, so that you can make the right decisions to get to that end goal. You know, so yeah, I would say those, you know, all those people I listed are friends. And that's the other thing. They're all friends. They know me. They've got, you know, they know what I'm capable of. They know what I'm maybe not capable of. And I rely on them for, you know, interaction when I'm making big decisions. So try not to make big decisions in the moment. Trying to make really thoughtful decisions. And I haven't always adhered to that. I have. And those become, you know, I don't believe in mistakes. I believe in learnings, but you try to make as little mistakes as possible moving forward, especially when, you know, we deal with hundreds of people now. Supply chain, from this to go to there, to get it filled here, to move it there, to get your labels here, to sell here, to the individual who's doing, like, we deal with a lot of fucking people. And when you're in advertising, you don't really have to do that. You're like, hey, here's a big idea, go make it happen. But when you're on the other side, right? When you're on the other side, you have to know what the fluctuation in currency is. You need to know what shipping costs. You need to know what timing is. You need to add, you think you're going to add a month, you need to add 3 months. Like those kind of learnings, nobody will teach you. You can only go through them. And that takes time. You know, that takes time, unfortunately. I mean, you know, expectations are motherfucker, as they say, because you've got to be very careful about what those expectations are. Mine were probably not realistic when I first started this, and I might have like shied away from it. Unfortunately, I have good blinders on. They're good and bad because you know, this is hard work. It's not like, hey, let's come up with something really cool and throw it out there and blah 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 blah. It's hard work. It's hard work, and
it's very hard.
But it's your work. It's our work. Do you know what I mean? Like we're doing it because
yeah,
for us, and that's a different kind of feeling for sure. You know,
y'all know what it's like to, you know, work on big brands that mean something, but you don't own them. You know, they're not a part of who you are and what you've touched and what you want to see happen. And it's different working for yourself and you know, working for a brand that you know, isn't a worldwide brand, but now you know how to get it there, you know, and that's a really cool experience that you guys all bring together. And Sarah, I liked it when you were talking about how you would cross over what you knew from this industry to this industry to this industry, because you know, most of the time they probably work in silos, and so you're able to offer something kind of different and unique that is a new selling way, a unique way to sell. You know, like who
Yeah.
That's so much more
beautifully than I did at the time, so thank you.
I'm sorry?
I was struggling to explain what I meant. You said that you explained that so much
Okay.
more beautifully than me. I was struggling to explain that, but you put it in a perfect nutshell, so thank you.
It's just so cool, the experience and the brands and the worldwide network of people and what you've been able to accomplish. I'm super inspired by all three of you guys and super pumped about this brand. So we have more mentors. Any other mentors that you want to mention, Larry?
no, I mean, I should have told you all the people that I think
Okay.
have been. I mean, there's so many. It's like an awards fucking speech. Like I'm afraid to leave people out.
You don't want to miss out on anybody.
Honestly, I think to what Sarah was talking about, all of those brands we've worked on, and I don't want to speak for these two, but I felt like it was my brand. Like, what would I do if I owned this brand? Right? Whether it's a fucking Puma or Espelon or whatever. If I owned it? And I think when people see you have passion for something like that, and you're willing to go out and limb for things like that, you create bonds that like are kind of you have forever. You know, there's Christine Mole, who sort of was the first person that, you know, Espelon came in and they wanted to pitch for an event. And I said, fuck that, let's reposition the brand. And she listened to me. And that's how we got Eskimo. So it's like, I think Sarah said there's like these moments in time that shit happens and you have to be, I believe in luck, right? I believe that, but you have to sort of make your own luck. You have to be open for it and be able to pounce on it when it's there. And those kind of things are like, that's why, I don't know, that's why I'm in this fucking business. I love it. I like what I do. I enjoy it. I love the connections with people. I love seeing somebody take their hard-earned money and, buy a bottle in front of me and they don't know who the fuck I am, or buy a drink of ours or talk about it on, on the interweb. Like, I love that. Like, that's fucking why we do this. Money's great, but accomplishment of putting something out there that was an idea that's manifested in something, whatever it is, product or service or whatever, and seeing people fucking interact with that, that's the joy.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, that would be cool being in a Total Wine and seeing somebody pick up your brand. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, it has to be wild.
I was at Astor Spirits. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just give you one example. We were at Astor Spirits, and I decided to do the sampling myself because I want to see how people. I like seeing how people interact with our brand. I like to be there. I travel all over the country. Kevin and Sarah, we're fully integrated with our consumers to see what they're about and check what they're doing, right? And I went to Astor, and we had a sampling and stuff, but people hung out in front of our thing like a bar. They were there for like 3 hours. Some people were there for 3 hours. We sold like 3.5 cases in 2 hours. No, we were there for 3 hours. And it was just like seeing people like enter and talk about it, and then they'll bring another person over and talk about the same thing because it hit on a nerve on what they're into. Like, it was super, it's exciting to watch. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kevin, you want to talk a little bit about your mentors?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of feel like I learn a lot of different things from a lot of different people. So there's like for me to point to like one person is tough, but like there are little bits of things that I've taken from a lot of different people. I mean, certainly like Larry and Sarah too. And then like, people, a lot of people I've worked with over the years, back at Gyro, back in the day there. A lot of people in the spirits industry. Like, I actually learned a lot. There was this woman, the woman who brought me on at Remy Cointreau was Susie Sesko. And she was like the VP of something. I don't know. But I learned a ton from her in terms of like being on the supplier side, because that's what I really didn't know at the time coming from the agency, to the supplier side. And then, sorry, I was unprepared for this question. I don't know why, but there are a lot of people I also learned what not to do from too. And I think that was really important as well. Like, there are a lot of people who I've worked with and I realized like they just did it wrong or they did something wrong that like I didn't really appreciate or I found to be like a waste of time. So I've taken like little bits and bobs from like from kind of all over the place and from a lot of different people. I mean, there's a guy, he's not in the spirits industry anymore, but this guy Dan Deephouse, who is he was at William Grant and then he was at Remy Cointreau, and he is a very thoughtful person at like connecting everything through the line, and he taught me a lot there, from like supplier through agency to on off, how all of that connects through. But yeah, it's been a lot. There are a lot of different, I can't really point to like one person in particular, I would say like taught me everything, but it's been a lot of here and there. But also kind of to Larry's point, what he was saying about, like working on brands that you're passionate for is like, I feel like one of the things that I've really learned is like, I really only want to work, and I've tried to make this a point for like the last like 7-8 years probably, of like only working on things that I love. So, I've worked on things that I didn't like before. Certainly, like even when I worked at Gyro, as much as I loved working on Puma and working on the spirits brands, I mean, there was a period when I worked on, dare I say this, we had a cigarette client, and I worked on cigarettes for a couple of years, and I really didn't like it at all, just because of what that does. You know what I mean? But yeah, I feel like it's a lot about like doing what makes you happy and that. And I feel like those are the people I really learn from, like the people that are really doing what they love and have a passion about what they're doing and believe in the products that they're behind, and that they're not just making it up. So I guess in the long and the short is like, don't fake it is kind of what I learned. I really like working with people who aren't faking it and aren't just giving me like, if we start working on a project with someone, because we all still do some consulting bits here and there too, as if somebody's just giving you, dry bullet points of something, it's not that interesting. So you really want to hear the oomph behind it.
Passion. That makes sense. That makes total sense.
Fine.
Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about your mentors?
Yeah, because my answer is a little bit different, but it's the God's honest truth. My mentors, I never met them, and they're all dead. But it's all my icons, mostly musical icons that I've always looked up to, and I've always kind of thought, what would they do? So David Bowie, Lou Reed, Joe Strummer, they're all my mentors. I always think, what would they do? And I've always kind of let them guide most things that I do. And it's not just that creatively they were geniuses, but they were solid. They had a good work ethic, and they would turn up, they would show up, they were accountable, and they would do one, what was right, and two, what was right for them. So I've always let them kind of guide me from the grave. Well, David has not been dead that long, but even before. And obviously there's a picture of him right there behind Kevin's head.
And yesterday was his birthday.
And yesterday was his birthday. And just to say, that's Aladdin Sane. Everybody says that's Ziggy Stardust, that picture. It's not. It's Aladdin Sane in a dry cleaner.
It's Aladdin Sane.
It's Aladdin Sane. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of my mentors. And I like to play this little kind of game. I always think, what would they do? I like to play this little game with like musical icons as brand strategy. So, like the things like, when Lou Reed said that quote about, if there's any more than 3 notes, it's jazz. That famous quote, like, which is basically saying that 3 notes is fine. Anything more than that, and it's jazz. And you can apply that to brand strategy. It's like you need 3 elements. Any more than that, and you're just noodling unnecessarily. So it's like I like to play that kind of little game as well, things like that. But I would say mentors. And the other reason why I've cited those as mentors is as the other two said, I don't want to miss off the list anybody that was. So I'm playing it safe, and I'm going to people who are dead and people that I know.
Well, yeah.
But
okay.
It's not just
you're a first, but that is very funny.
How did the graveyard? Go to the graveyard to find them.
I think I'll pass.
Excellent. I'm learning stuff about them. I've known them for a while, and I'm learning all kinds of new shit. So this is fascinating.
All right, I love this. This is why we do it. Nobody's doing this. So let's move on to resources. Larry, do you want to go ahead and start us with any resources, or, it can be anything, whether it's brand related or anything in terms of organization or any personal kind of resource that helped you through your professional journey?
Boy, this one's a hard one because it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up my own ass. I think the resources that I've gained was the stuff that we talked about before, is more knowledge by going through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trial and error.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I think you have to go in with an open eye on stuff. I'm a little bit of a research junkie. I like going in and finding out, to what Sarah even talked about, what people have done before, or what's failed, what's not, what are consumers doing, why are they doing it. I like the human, attribute of this. I come from hippie psychologist parents, and I think the psychology of why humans do what they do and choose what they choose is super interesting to me. So I don't know if my resources are sitting right here with me. Sarah keeps me straight. She knows so much about what's going on in culture. I mean, we have back and forth about like even fashion, what I want to do. Mine's kind of caught probably in 1987. Kevin keeps me straight on sort of making sure I'm doing the right things for the right reasons. We discuss a lot of this stuff. He's very organized. I'm not organized. These guys will tell you I'm a verbal processor, and that can be fucking, I'm sure, drive these guys crazy. But my resources are right here. These are the people that help me move this brand forward, keep me straight, educate me on what's going on, and support me too, quite frankly. So you have to have, I think, a team that has a central belief that in its core has capabilities that are complementary, but also have capabilities outside your norm. That is the key, right? So you all have to believe in the same thing. You all have to be able to do a little of the same thing, but you all have to have your own universe that you play in, that you're going to bring to the table when needed. So yeah, this is my resource right here. You're looking at it.
I love that. That's very nice. That's good, because you were talking about earlier about how important it is to have trust with your team, especially when we're building something so big and there's so many moving parts. You got to have a team that you can trust to get everything done, and then also to learn from. And like you said earlier, someone that can help you know your strengths, but know your weaknesses too.
Yeah.
Those are the best partners you could ever have. Those are the best people I've ever worked with.
I don't always listen to my weaknesses. These guys can attest to that. I do eventually. Which I'm down
to. Oh, that's funny. You're a visionary. I'm a visionary too. It's hard. It's very hard. Kevin, do you have any resources you want to share with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, aside from obviously this group, a lot of times I mean, and looking at what's going on, in the world, and look what's going on in culture, and look what's going on in just even like film and music, etc. Is like a lot of times I look back at things I've done and like old work and things like that, just to see like what it's almost like reviewing something I did, maybe a couple of years ago or 15 years ago, to see like what about that worked at the time, and like even I guess what I'm saying is like it's about longevity too. Is like, if I look at something like that I worked on at like a campaign or a program or something like that in like 2005, and I think like, would it still work today? Do you know what I mean? So a lot of times I review like old things to see what worked and what didn't and why, and then think about how I could apply that today. Because I think there's like a lot to be learned from like historical work, or for me there is, just because it helps me focus on what I'm trying to do now, especially in terms of, I mean, certainly a lot of the tactics have changed. So like taking out the whole internet thing and social media and all that good stuff, but just in terms of like the way that we talk, like I talked about something, the way that something, rolled out, the way it played out. So I do look at a lot of that, even not just my own work, but like other work too, that's been done. And also like, why is something, like why does something still work today that's been around for, 100 years or 50 years or whatever it is, like a lot of those references, and like in thinking about what we could do to apply that here.
Nice. I like
basically.
that. I mean, we've kind of talked about that already in different aspects of people were ahead of their time, or what worked back then is still working today, and it's kind of fun to see what those are and test them, and see what the outcome could be. That's really cool. I like that. That's another podcast. I wanna hear your results. Sarah, what about you? You have any resources you want to share?
I've got it's a terrible answer, and it's a huge confession. I never reference anything. I don't look at anything. I don't read anything. I don't subscribe to any of those amazing, important insights that Larry and Kevin forward to me, like drinks.com, Drinks World. Nothing. I never look at anything. I've never done anything like that. I just go by instinct and what my gut tells me, and that's it, which is a bit of a confession. That was not so bad. I'll never work for a corporate ever again, because, you should back up your thinking. But that's it. I just go with gut and instinct, what I think feels right, and that's it. And I sort of live with that. I think I'm okay with that, because I just try and think what it is to be human and what the other human would think about something that I'm doing, and trying to treat everything as though treat people like they're humans and not customers. So I just try to trust my instinct. That's it. Is that a terrible answer? It's possibly a terrible answer. I honestly tried. I tried to think of some book that I'd read, or something that I referenced or researched, and thought, I must take this question seriously. There must be something. But I'm ashamed to confess I don't. I just do what I think feels right.
I think your instinct has worked pretty well so far in your career, so I think you're on track. And you're very...
Not very is it? It's not very accountable. I mean, in a way, that's probably a good job why I'm not working with corporate, because probably with instinct and gut feelings, it's not accountable. And I respect accountability, so that's why I'm almost saying it's like a confession. I do respect that when you need to have something to point at so that you can learn from it, or you can say, well, we did this and this is the rationale for it. There needs to be a rationale for stuff, and I respect the fact that things have a rationale, and rationales are really important. And most of the time I do try and offer some rationale for what I've done. But I've got to be honest, most of the time it just felt like the right thing. Might kick me in the ass one day, but yeah, so far getting away with it.
Well, I think you probably have a combination of that on your team, and this allows the human connection and the introspective of what that consumer or what that person is that you're trying to reach, and that takes a lot of time and energy and focus to kind of figure out what that looks like. So again, Sarah, this is definitely different, but I really like it, and I think it's very unique and part of the air and the breath behind the brand, and how it speaks to consumers. Okay, so pain points. Oh, the fun one. Who wants to go first? Larry.
I think Larry has been, so he should go first. I only have one pain point, and Kevin fixes it. So I just do my pain point really quick, and Kevin always my pain point, what I believe to be the number one killer for brands and startups, is loss of momentum. That's it. That's the only thing that I'd say is the absolute killer, losing that momentum. Because if it's lost, you're starting again from scratch. You should never, ever lose momentum, ever. I would say that's the big killer. And Kevin always fixes that, because he never lets us lose momentum, because he's always on us all the time. Make a decision. We're doing this. This is what's happening. I'm doing it. I've done it. It's gone. That's it. So that's my only pain point. And
it's the German in me.
There you go. That's it. I'm telling that one, and I'll go on mute.
I love it. Processing. Do it. Get it done. Yes. Check that list.
Check.
I think for me, it's managing multiple points of interest. And what I mean by that is everybody's got their own agenda, right? Everybody, well, regardless if you're working with them and they're a supplier or they are, a selling or a consumer or whatever it is, everybody's got their own agenda, right? And you have to somehow fit yourself in within that. And when you're doing it on multiple planes, you've got to be a magician sometimes. So I think I agree with Sarah. The number one problem for businesses is not knowing where they're going, and once they get there, not keeping momentum, right? And I think along that way, you have to be nimble. And I don't think a lot of businesses are nimble. They take one track and they think, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to force it through this. If it doesn't work, we'll just keep forcing it. And I think as a small business, you need to have a backup 2, 3, and 4, right? And you have to try to find the truth as much as possible within that. And, that's not always possible. And any brand, I don't care what you're doing, what brand you're making is, you're going to have pitfalls, but how do you recover? And I think, dealing with multiple personalities is probably the biggest problem in business, is because you've got supply chain issues, you've got financial issues, you've got consumer issues, you've got, right, you have intermediate issues between people who are secondary and third, tertiary partners that you're working with that you can't even control that aspect of it. So it's about communication. The better the communication, better business happens. But you also have to be ready for left hand shot in the gut, because you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knew about it.
You never know what's behind around the corner sometimes.
We were going to launch in COVID, right? But one of our investors pulled out at the last minute, and you could be like, oh, it was the best thing that happened to us because we would have launched in COVID. And so, yeah, that's what I mean. You have to have a positive outlook on what's going to happen, but you have to be prepared to say, okay, we said we were going to do this. Let's do this. You know what I mean? And still be true to what that brand is about.
Kevin?
Yeah, well, sometimes too, when with the momentum, I always gotta add, it's the momentum of not just us, but it's like the momentum of other people too. So it's the momentum of, your partners. We have a lot of people who are interested in the brand, in terms of like performers and, people who are inspired by John Willie as well, like making sure, there are a lot of people to keep engaged, in terms of people who love us and want to promote us, and then also, distributors, et cetera, just to make sure that everybody's excited and ongoing. And, Larry was saying about like multiple personalities. Sometimes the multiple personalities are in the same person. So that's another thing. There's no one on this call, but, sometimes you have a thing where you're like, ooh, what happened there? I thought we just said this. I thought we said A and you just said Q. But I think that is one of the toughest things. I think it's just, and also like being like a small core group of people, there are a lot of things to manage. There's just a lot out there, a lot of components to it. There's production, there's sourcing, there's, distribution, their brand, we have brand ambassadors. There's a lot going on. So it's a lot of like keeping all those pieces moving at the same time.
All right. Nice.
I just, and you know what? I hope I answered the question, because I think I kind of just forgot what the question was.
Pain points in the industry for you guys. So, okay. Outlook for 2023 or 2024, excuse me. Who wants to start with that one? It can be industry or, specific to your brand. It's up to you.
Want me to start, guys? You want?
Yeah, start.
I think industry today. Honestly, I feel like the industry chases trends right now. Brown spirits, agave spirits, no alcohol, RTDs, and it's super hard to navigate. It's almost like the wine industry was, 15 years ago, really hard to navigate. All the labels look the same, all of that kind of stuff. So I kind of think, like, for me, and I hate using lifestyle brand because it sounds a little bit like a marketing sort of ploy, but a brand that can fit into an ideal, but look at it from a different point of view, right? Can do really well in here. And I think the industry is starting to sort of grasp that. I think this, for us, and I was talking a little bit about what I think about brown spirits and agave spirits. Like if you look at agave spirits, it's starting to level off, right? Because there's so much out there. Brown spirits is either going super premium or flavoring a lot of the mid-level stuff. So there's only so much you can do that. For me, the white spirit space, and I'll talk about gin because that's where we're at, I think has a huge opportunity to sort of offset this ideal of what a gin can be and what a white spirit can be. Right? When we're talking about like you trying a martini, there's some simplicity and beauty in a martini, but it still has the punch and the kick that people are looking for, that mouthfeel, that taste, that like, and also it has an idea of romance and beauty and simplicity and a lot of those things too that I think people are looking for in a cocktail, right? A cocktail isn't just something to like imbibe on. A cocktail is supposed to tell a story and change your flavor palette and take you somewhere. And I think white spirits has a real opportunity to do that in a different way. And I think gin, especially because gin's kind of a palate, right? Vodka's vodka, you're going to flavor it. It's a neutral grain spirit, right? I think I think with gin, you can really do something interesting with it. But I think it's got a point. Like, I think the gin industry right now is like, oh, here are my 18 botanicals, and they come from, I think everybody's now going to do that. So when you start chasing trends and you can't find a space for yourself that's real, I think consumers can see it and go call bullshit out it. And I think that's why I'd say lifestyle. It's like, we have a point of view. Everything we do is the reality of that point of view, even down to the liquid and how we make it, right? We're not just coming in from outside and saying, oh, look at my natural spirit that was made on a mountaintop with, tears from a goat, right? Like, clear enough. And I also think that this balance of sinfully good that I talked about before is super important for consumers going forward. We're all made up of a yin yang, right? The reason we drink, there's aspects of why we drink, right? That are not always great. And then people want some sort of ideal about what healthy is. And healthy doesn't always mean, your physical health. It's mental health and all of those things. So I think we're going to start seeing more brands sort of play in the aspect of that yin yang. Because it's either like, if you look at the non-alcs side, it's all like fine. It's either trying to taste exactly like it, or it's like an alternative to something else. Where you said bartenders are making these non-alc drinks that are amazing, and they don't have to buy a bottle of it. So it's like it'll be interesting to see what weeds out at the end of this day. I mean, there's a plethora of RTDs. Like, I think you're going to start seeing stuff get weeded out over the next 5 years, and the top brands will stay in there. And then you'll start to see smaller, interesting innovations instead of big blowout, same as.
I like that. I think we need that.
Me too.
If brands are going to make it, they're going to need to do that, because like you said, we've got a lot of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to start being different and unique.
Everybody thinks they can start an alcohol brand. Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, we just had a panel discussion on that. I posted it last week, and it's a very hard thing to do. And you got to have a lot of resources and backing to really kind of make it go.
Or you can be nimble and tight about what you're doing, and be very smart about who you're going after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is a process. There is a formula that works. You just have to find out what that is for your success. Okay. Kevin, do you want to main trends for the industry in 24?
I don't really know, to tell you the truth. I mean, I think Larry covered a lot of good ground there. I actually don't really have anything
No,
to
that's
add
okay.
to it, unfortunately.
Sarah?
Sorry.
I think maybe it's a wishful trend, but I would like some of the majors to take their environmental responsibilities seriously for 24 and beyond. Coldplay, not a band that I like, but they've just released a sustainability report, which I thought was really interesting. And they've managed to like completely cut down their carbon footprint on their tour. And they've released a report so that other bands can follow suit and do it, to kind of lead by example. Wouldn't it be great if one of the big majors did something like that? They made that key thing, their key trend within the industry. I think it's a bit of a wish, really, bit of a wishful thinking one. Oh, that it were a trend for 2024.
I'm with you 100% on that.
That's it.
100%. So in closing here, since we just have a few minutes, Larry, what do you do outside of work? What are your interests?
God. I like work. I really do. It's fucked up to say that, but I do. You know what? I like to be at the beach. I like to surf, and I love my dog. I'm a dog person. So, I try to make sure my downtime is downtime when I'm by myself, so I can regenerate and get back to what I like to do. Pretty simple, very simple.
Kevin?
So when I'm not working, so I like to run. I'm a runner, and I also practice. I practice this yoga style. It's called Iyengar yoga. If you're not familiar with it, it's not the nice yoga. It's the do it perfect. They might yell at you and curse at you. So it's not really for everyone, but you do it very, very well. And as somebody who's about to turn 57 soon, I'm proud to say that I can do like a 5-minute handstand, and I can stand on my head for up to 10 minutes, which is great because they make you do it. Like, and I can do the headstand not against a wall, which is great. So like, I've learned a lot there, and it's good just for like, going forward. It helps me concentrate too. It keeps me focused. Yeah. And then aside from that, eat, travel, dog.
I'm with you on that.
Music. I like to go to live music shows a lot, and I like to go to and I like movies. So kind of a lot of like escapey kind of things, that are like sensory, like that is what I really enjoy.
Me too. I like that. Nice.
So,
Sarah?
I sort of ditto Larry, really. Sorry, I don't really do anything outside of thinking about all these things that we've just talked about. Music, icons, icon genius quotes as brand strategy, documentaries about art, design, architecture. I mean, I write a little bit about architecture and design, but I'd be lying if I said I really did lots of stuff outside of this kind of thing. My pastime is to think about all these things constantly, furiously, every single day. All I've ever cared about is brands and the concept of brands and the impact that they have on people and the sense of belonging that they give to people. That's it. That's all of it about my entire life.
No, Sarah made me drive around to this church, 70s church in Vegas, so she could take pictures. So she does love them. 60s, sorry.
60s. Yeah, we found the most beautiful 1960s church, spied it, and it was in Vegas. I was like, this mid-century modern masterpiece in the middle of Vegas. And it was church. It was glorious. And I stop the car and got out with my camera and took lots of pictures. But yeah.
That's fun. Architecture's fun. It's beautiful and it's everywhere, I mean, obviously in Europe you have a lot more like a lot older buildings and a lot of different histories and whatnot, but yeah, there's tons of it here, obviously. Vegas is not a church that I would that was not 2 words I'd put in one sentence, but that's probably why it was so fun to find it.
Maybe.
Of course you can get married by what's his name, the king, all the time. So I don't know if he's in a real church or a pretend church or what. Oh, that's funny. So this has been amazing. I'm really glad I got introduced to you guys, and I'm so excited about this brand. Like I said, I'm a gin person. I love gin. Huge fan. Love what you're doing, just from A to Z. It has been an amazing journey just sitting here today, learning about you all and all the brands that you've been involved in over the years, and every person you've touched, because it's worldwide. Clearly, I mean, I still have my Puma shoes from many years ago. We've got Sailor Jerry here in this house at all times, so Hendrix Gin as well. I used to work a little bit with those guys in my previous life, in a roundabout way. They were on our team, but yeah, big brands, a lot of people's lives touched, and you're continuing the journey in your own way, and you can tell it your own way and how you want to do it. And I think that's really unique and fun. And you guys know what you're doing. You got a plan. You've got a big demand behind you guys now, especially around the world, which is just, it's very, very cool. So congratulations on all your success. And I can't wait to follow you guys and, touch base in 6 months and see where you're at, in a year and see where you're at. And so definitely keep in touch. I want to hear and see your progress. So lots of luck. And thank you for this. Thank you for your time and sitting down with me today and letting me try it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us. It was great. I learned a lot.
This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.